Hello and welcome. This is probably the 15th July wrap-up you've read, but it's never going to be like this one. I don't know why I'm talking like a used car salesman.
Marker.
It's now August, which means it's time for a July wrap-up. My name is Becca, so if you don't know me, now you do. I'm here, you're here, so let's talk about some books. I read 5 this month, which I think is good. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think comparison is a thief of joy, and so I'm not going to. I read 5 books, it's more than one a week, and I'm happy about it because I was able to actually enjoy each story individually. I think people who can read more than that are phenomenal creatures of this earth. I am just not amongst them. I am only a mere mortal. So, let's get started. Okay, well, just out of frame, we have a guest. And by guest, I mean the boss from on high is here, which is Scooty. Scooty. So let's just jump right in because there's no time like the present. I read 5 books in July, and I don't know what to say about that, but I did. I read them. I read all 5 of these books. All right, so we're officially into August, which means we have 1 month left to get the rest of our summer reads done, which is also a little bit hard because by August, I'm already starting to feel like I want to be moving into fall, but I just got to take what I can get, which is that it is hotter than shit in Los Angeles, which means it's still summer here. And I have a few more summer reads left, so that works for me. But this is what I read in July. So I have 5 books that I was able to read. All of them are physical copies. 3 of them were book of the month, actually. 2 mysteries, 2 romances, and 1 like literary fiction. So the first book that I read, I started in June and finished up in July, so I'm counting it because I can and no one can stop me. So first I have Honey. It's a book of the month. It was my book of the month pick for June. So this is Isabel Banta's debut book, and I think that this is a really good first book. I love the cover, first of all. It's just really fun. And if you haven't heard about this one, Honey is basically a 90s nostalgic book where it takes, I think, inspiration from Britney Spears, NSYNC, Christina Aguilera, Backstreet Boys, like those iconic people from the pop days and from the just crazed fans. You know, before there was One Direction, there was NSYNC. Hey, hey. Anyway, that was so good in Deadpool. If you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, the first scene, it's incredible. Anyway, back to Honey. Basically, it follows the meteoric rise of a girl who I think has taken inspiration from Britney Spears, but she basically starts as just a regular girl, and then all of her pop dreams come true, or do they? Britney Spears has been back into the media a lot with her memoir and with everything happening with her conservatorship. And so I think this was a really interesting timing for this one. I ended up giving this one, I think I gave it 3 stars. The reason I gave it 3 stars is because the premise is so cool and had so much promise. And as someone who grew up in the 90s and their first concert was NSYNC and Britney Spears opened for them, this was a book for me, for sure. Okay, you're going to have to get down. I love you so much. Go sit with you. Yeah. Go. I know, but you're a little too clingy-clangy with the movements. Love you, mean it. Okay, I think what lacked for me is that everything felt a little half-baked. Everything was so close, but not quite there. It left me wanting a little bit more. The characters, I liked their development, but I felt like they could have gone deeper. If we're following the story of a girl who's going to rise to fame and she starts as just a normal girl with hardships, I want to see her being a pop star. I want to see all that. And I feel like it was mentioned like a little breeze, and I wanted a tornado, you know? I wanted a little less and a little bit more Dorothy's going Oz, you know? What was interesting, it was one of those books who tries to put other mediums into it, which I love. I love when there's a good text conversation, a good web article, whatever. I love seeing different media. I think it's such an interesting and unique way to tell a story, and I think it really lends to what our world is now and how we communicate with each other in the present day. They did that, but with, I think, news articles and music lyrics. It was interesting with the music lyrics because I felt like it didn't really add anything. And I was expecting more like, I mean, nobody can write Taylor Swift lyrics, so I understand, but I expected like more of the lyrics to be a part of the story where you're like, oh, I'm getting new meaning through the songs. And I think it was like almost there, and that could have been a really cool way to incorporate different elements of the story. But the lyrics ended up being like, okay, that didn't tell me anything new. I'm just gonna like skim it. I would recommend it if you grew up in the 90s and loved Britney Spears and NSYNC, and even more so now have read like her biography and have watched, there's a Netflix docuseries on right now called Dirty Pop about the guy who put together NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. If you liked watching that, if you liked reading her memoir, I think this is like a good fictional follow-up to that. But if somebody had no interest in pop in the 90s, I wouldn't recommend it, just because I think that's what I got out of it, nostalgia of that time. And if that's not interesting to you, I don't know that it's worth your time. But I think it was a really good debut novel, and I will read what she has to write next. The last thing I will say about this book, the ending felt like we were cheated a bit. I think that the book leading up to this ending, and I was like, oh, I think that's what's going to happen. And I was looking at the pages, like, how it's going to happen this quickly. And it ended up being that you see the conclusion in, I think, like a Wikipedia page mock-up. And again, I like different kinds of media being used in books, but that was like, really? That's all we get for that? Like this whole thing, and that's all we get? It left me wanting more. I'll say that. But it did leave me feeling like I'm still Team Britney. So there is that. So the next one that I read was not The Housemaid. No. But I did read The Housemaid is Watching, which I'll put here. I've seen a lot of reviews that are kind of all over the place, and I really like Housemaid. It was my first Freida McFadden book, and I really liked actually The Housemaid's Secret, which a lot of people didn't seem to like as much. And I really liked it because it felt like a very natural progression from the first book to the second book. Sometimes with these like sensational mystery novels, it's like, oh, here we go again. It didn't seem too outlandish to me. It seemed like that's what would happen next. It felt like a very natural progression rather than just like another Scooby-Doo episode, which, please don't get me wrong, I love Scooby-Doo. It felt a lot more novice, and I think there were chapters that ended that normally when I'm reading her books, the chapter ends and I'm like, I have to read the next chapter. Like, I gotta know what happens next. And really what ended up happening was at the end of the chapter, it'd be like, haha, gotcha. And I'd be like, sure did. And then I like didn't want to read more. I was like, that's fine. Okay. Editing the writing seemed a little bit maybe rushed in this one. I know that this is the conclusion of this trilogy, and I think that's good. I don't think that it needs to continue. She writes so many books that, you know, it's not like she's hurting to come up with material. It's a good place to end. I say that didn't exactly feel like Freida, but I think you couldn't do the same thing as you did for the first two for the third one. So I think it does make sense. But it's definitely much more a Desperate Housewives kind of feel. It takes place in like suburbia rather than the city, which is what the other two have taken place in. I think my main critique with it, and I think I gave this one 3 stars as well, is that we spend a lot of time watching Millie watch things. You're told a lot of things and not seeing a lot of things. The reason you're told a lot of things is because she's not doing anything. It was a little bit like, can you do something? Like, you're supposed to be the doer and the fixer, you know? You're the Olivia Pope of this world. Like, what's happening? It just seemed a little bit like, oh, what's that? Oh, I've never been in something like this before. And it's like, we've been here. Millie, we've been here. We've done this. So, like, let's act like it. You know what I mean? The other thing that bothered me was that the miscommunication, and it actually wasn't even miscommunication. It was no communication. Like, if any one of the family members had said anything, it would have solved so much. I mean, literally, like, no communication. Like, I think the entire story hinges on the fact that the stories aren't going to communicate with each other. In the stories that the characters aren't going to. I don't know if I just said that or not. I don't know. I haven't had my full cup of coffee, so I'm not really sure. If they just communicated, it would have been fine. I think in mysteries, it's nice to be like, oh, well, this was like out of their control, and it's how they reacted to it. I was like, no, I feel like a lot of things were in control. A lot of things. I would recommend it. If you are like me and have to finish a series or trilogy, I am trying to approach the idea of DNFing books or series. I'm trying. It hasn't worked yet, but I am trying. So if you're like me and you need to finish something out, and you read The Housemaid, you read The Housemaid's Secret, then yes, you should read it. Freida McFadden. It's still a quick read. So if you want just a quick palate cleanser, and then if you really like Desperate Housewives, I would say this book is for you. It feels very, I've seen like one episode of that show, but this felt very similar vibe-wise. So if you like those things, then sure, why not? Give it a shot. However, if you were just reading this, and maybe, I was going to say, maybe you're just reading it as a standalone, but it could have been better as a standalone if you haven't read the other two, because then you don't have any preconceived notions. Maybe. I don't know. I'll never have that experience. it's definitely more of a maybe for me, unfortunately. The next book that I read is so good. I'll just start by saying that. And it's the second one that is a book of the month pick. So kudos to them. This one was my April book of the month, but I saved it because it was just too summery not to. And that's Just for the Summer. It's right in the title. I obviously had to wait for summer. Who am I? Monster? No. If you haven't heard of Just for the Summer, which I doubt because everyone and their mother and their coaches and their Olympic buddies, the fuck does that mean? Who knows? But they're reading this. So Just for the Summer, basically 2 people are cursed. It's like the Good Luck Chuck movie from forever ago. What was that comedian's name? Chuck. Good Luck Chuck. I think he has such a punchable face. What is that guy's name? Like, he has brown hair. He's a white man from like 2000s. But I think the movie's called Good Luck Chuck. But now I'm doubting that too.
One eternity later.
Dane Cook. Is it Good Luck Chuck? What's his name again? Anyway, okay, thank you. Dane Cook. Okay, so Dane Cook was in a movie called Not Just My Luck, that's Lizzie Lohan movie, Good Luck Chuck, where basically every woman that he dates, when they break up, finds their soulmate next. So that's what it kind of reminded me of, which is funny, because I think that definitely dates me. However, this guy is so much better than Dane Cook, which is definitely a plus, because his name is Justin, and that was almost a deal breaker. But he's the only man worthy of the name. Well, there's Justin Timberlake. Well, that's debatable. Anyway, so he has the problem that Chuck had, which is that every woman he dates then finds a soulmate. He posts a thread on Reddit, and there's a girl that, lo and behold, has the same issue. And they tried to date for the summer so that they can cancel it out and find their soulmates. Who knows what happens next? It's not totally obvious. This book was so much fun, like Abby Jimenez's other book. So I've only read the Part of Your World. So this is the third in that. So there's Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and this one. And so this is part of that. It's Polyglot. This one, I also rated 5 stars. I rated the other 2 5 stars as well. I will say out of the 3, this is my least favorite. I would think it's Yours Truly, Part of Your World, and then Just for the Summer. But that is more of a me thing. I think the first 2 I related more with the character, so it was more impactful to me, like one-on-one. Whereas this one, I couldn't, what is the word? I couldn't not identify. I couldn't empathize? That's not true. I was very empathetic. I couldn't, what's the word? Not associate. What the fuck am I talking about? Relate. Yes! I couldn't relate. However, I think that if this is if the character's backstory is one that you have experienced, I think it is so relatable. And it's still 5 stars because it's written beautifully. I don't tab very much, only if a book really inspires me to do so. So if that doesn't tell you anything right there. If you like acts of service, if that's your love language, you'll swoon over this book and over Justin. Just this one. Like, the one line that this makes me always think of is like, if he wanted to, he would. I think I've seen other people say that as well. And it's so true. If he wanted to, he would, and that's what this book really depicts. The thing I love most about Abby Jimenez's books are that she gets, like, it's funny, like, they're always funny, like, there's the romance comedy aspect, but they're not fluffy, I wouldn't say. They deal with real people problems, which I love. Like, it's not like, I'm 22. The dog is gone wild again. The protector of Los Angeles. I don't know what I was saying, but I just feel like her books have a lot of heart and have a lot of, it's not like reading some of these where it's like, I'm 22 and I don't have my dream job yet. Like, what am I going to do? Maybe this guy could help me. Not that I don't love those books, but I think that it has more depth to it. And that's why these become 5 stars for me, is because I think about them long after I've read them. So Abby Jimenez, still queen of my heart. Also, question for you. If you've read other Abby Jimenez books, because now I have to read all of them. If you've read the ones that are outside of the Part of Your World set, which one did you like the most? Which one should I start with? Because I know she has a few others, and I'm not really sure where to embrace that, but I want to. So if you could be my guide, I would really appreciate that. The next one I read is a mystery, and that one is The Last Mrs. Parrish. So I picked up this one because I saw that the next Mrs. Parrish, something about that. There's Mrs. Parrish and there's another one. I don't know. But that one was coming out, and I was like, oh, I still haven't read this one, and it looks summery. There's like a pool and a sun hat and sunglasses. It's not summery, but the marketing worked. I picked it up in summertime. So The Last Mrs. Parrish, Liv Constantine is the author, which is 2 sisters, which I think is really cool. This is the first one I've read by them. I liked it. I think this one was also a 3-star. I had a lot of 3 stars. Yeah, I love 3 stars. This book, would I recommend reading it? Sure. I guess maybe. I think that if somebody was asking me for a good mystery, this one would not come out as being like, oh, you know which one you should read? This would not be like in the top 3 probably of the ones that I would pick. The vibes of this one are kind of like Verity or the movie A Simple Favor with Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick, 2 queens, and Gone Girl. I think these all kind of reminded me of that. I think that the first part was slow. And I can't do slow mysteries. I think mysteries should be quick and fast paced. And maybe sometimes they can have a slow burn if the writing's incredibly, incredibly good. I think like Agatha Christie's kind of like that to me, where it's like a slow burn, but things keep happening throughout. This was a lot of exposition, a lot of setup, and it was kind of slow. There is a switch further back, probably around here. So there's a switch in the story. That's where things got good. And I was like, oh, can't wait for this part. So I think that it ended up being worth it. If it hadn't had that switch, I think I wouldn't have liked it. The reason it got knocked down is without giving anything away, one of the characters does something full well knowing the repercussions it will have on someone else and not caring. Now it's a mystery, it's a thriller, whatever. Like that's pretty par for the course. But in this instance, it didn't need to be there. And I think it ended up leaving me a little cringy of just like, okay, I feel like that could happen another way, but that's what we're doing today, I guess. That's what we're doing. And then you just doubt everything that you've read for all of these pages. So I honestly don't think that I will read the newest one. I think I've seen kind of mixed reviews. I think I've also seen that it's kind of the same as this one. However, if you have read it and really enjoyed it, please try to convince me in the comments below. That way I might actually pick it up if I hear from someone that it's worth it. But I don't think so after this. I think I'm good. I got it. Check. Done. 3 stars. The last book that I read this month ended up being one of my favorite books of the year. So that's something. And it is my 3rd book of the month for this month that I read, which was for my May one. So again, I saved this to be a little bit more summary than May. May's spring still, I think. Anyway, so that book is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren is an auto-author for me, so this was kind of a no-brainer, but it's also fake dating, close proximity. She's having to pretend that she's bougie in front of all of these rich people and pretend that she fits in and has been in this world. Like, it's so much fun and it's hilarious. Like, I was laughing out loud from within the first 100 pages. I usually give books about 100 pages for me to see if I'm going to like it. And it was within those pages that I was already laughing out loud. So I absolutely loved it. 5 stars. You should absolutely read it. It's on like a private island in Indonesia. Like it's just so fun. And something that is done really well is you want to see like the bougie rich parts. Like that's part of seeing it. And I think that was filled out really well. I think you will like this. If you liked Crazy Rich Asians, it really reminded me of that kind of scenario. If you liked that, you'll definitely like this one. It's funny. It has heart and I really liked it. I think I saw a couple people saying that maybe the ending wasn't what they wanted or it was crazy. I don't know. People do be crazy these days. It was fantastic. You should read it. We have 1 more month left of summer. Take this one to the beach. Look at it. It's very beachy vibes. Very beachy vibes. Why wouldn't you take it to the beach? It's asking you to. So book of the month, another win. Christina Lauren, another win. It was just so good. I think my favorite quote that I keep remembering from this one is, Houston, we have a problematic man. And it just was nonstop. It was so funny. This is exactly how I would be reacting to this situation. It's like if I'm watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and then I'm like, I can't imagine being at this party. Like, I don't even know what I would be doing. This answers that question. And it's written so well. The banter's really good. Their relationship is super cute. And I loved it. I loved it. What can I say? But it was really nice because I ended the month on a 5-star. So I actually had kind of all over the place this month. I had 2 5 stars and I had the rest were 3 stars. They were a little bit disappointing. The one that I was most surprised by how much I love it was this one. I love Christina Lauren, but this one, I don't know. I think I read Something Wilder and didn't totally love that one and was expecting to and was kind of like, meh. And this one made me feel more like The Unhoneymooners, which was their first book that I read. And I loved The Unhoneymooners. So I was really excited that I ended up loving this one as much as I did. And then I think I was most disappointed in This Is Not the Book, but the 3rd one of this book because I loved this so much. So I think I just kind of expected to love the 3rd one. And so I was a little bit disappointed by that, but so glad that I read it. So that's it. Oh, let me switch. Heyo. So these are the books that I read in July. Imagine this one is white. Tell me if you've read any of these. Again, tell me if you've read other Abby Jimenez and which one you would recommend that I start with, because I'm feeling a little bit lost there. Let me know what you read this July. And if you do your TBRs by the month or by the season? I do mine much more seasonally, but I don't think that's generally what people do. So let me know if that's what you do. And that's it. I did it. I only read 5 this month. And you know what? That's great. It's more than 1 a week. Damn, girl, you on fire. I'm seeing people who read like 20 books. Who are you? I don't understand. My attention span is just too much of a pinball machine for that. That's it. That's all for me. That's all, folks. What does that sound? It's like, that's all, folks. I can't even do that. That's all, folks. That's all I got. What more do you want from me? I haven't had my coffee yet. Okay. That's it. Thank you for being here. As always, bye.